Okay, sorry. I can actually share the meeting without reading the agenda.
Yeah, we can
Go to the first item. So call the meeting to order. Do we need to do roll call or we have a quorum? So
We have a quorum, Director Kenneth,
Here.
Director Potter.
here. And thank you for that. Do we have an approval of minutes as our first? Yeah, approval of minutes.
Oh, do we want to do public comments first?
Are there any public comments?
For any of those joining us via Zoom, if you would like to comment on any item not on this agenda, you can raise your hand right now. You're none.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry to be starting this meeting at 5:35. So with that, would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Director Kenneth,
Yes.
Director Potter.
yes.
We don't agree, but happens then.
I think they don't get approved until the next meeting. My understanding. All right, let's I did see we have, but okay, we've got a new business, item 1. Derek, take it away.
All right. Derek Newman, Field Operations Manager for the Open Space Authority. Good evening, directors. Today, going to discuss about a trial program that we have out at Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. We call it, huh?
Oh, it is.
The mic?
Let's just, I guess we'll bring it up.
All right. Can you hear me better now?
For the day.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. This is a presentation about bike bells and directional trails out at Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, kind of a pilot project that we came up with coming out of the pandemic of all things, kind of a little bit of a history behind this. When we entered into the pandemic, we ended up doing a couple of changes on a lot of our preserves. One of them was instituting directional trails for all users. This was to help mitigate the conflict between users passing each other in the very early stages of the pandemic before there was a lot of information out about how the virus was spreading. One of the things during that time when we had the directional trails in place, we had a significant amount of feedback from the public that there were a lot of benefits of having the directional trails on the preserves, along with some negativity as well. The main feedback that we received that was positive about the directional trails was that one of the big things was that the bikes were going in one direction and people knew which way that the bikes were going to be coming from, along with a couple of other things about just the overall experience of being out in the preserve, not passing as many people, not having to step off the trails as much when people were opposing you coming from the other way. The equestrians liked the idea of the directional trails, but they didn't like the idea of the bikes necessarily coming up from behind, depending on the horse themselves. So some of the feedback about that was, that it can be intense being on a horse that is reacting to a bike that's coming up from the behind. The horse feels like it's a threatening, scary creature and can react negatively to that and potentially throw the rider out. But we did do a survey during this time, and it did consolidate a lot of what we were hearing from the public. It was evenly split between liking one-way trails and not liking one-way trails for various reasons throughout it. One of the big things that did come up that populated, though, was that there was a lot of safety concerns with bikes during this time as well. A lot of the concerns were that bikes would go fast around the corners, what the hikers and equestrians would perceive as potentially less than ideal speeds that were threatening to hikers or equestrians, where they felt threatened by the bike coming around the corners suddenly and they would have to jump off the trail. A lot of what we saw out there were those kind of actors that would be potentially going relatively fast for the conditions that were out on the trail, but for the most part, they were within what we would consider safe distance. They were able to stop ahead of time before there would be any kind of conflict that would happen on the trail. So it really was more about being scared than it was truly about an imminent type of dangerous situation that was happening out on the trails. However, the one really big item that came out of it, though, was that the hikers and the equestrians really do like having a choice of how they're going to encounter a bicycle on the trail, whether that is from behind or from in front. So that one really got our attention about it. Then in this year, April of this year, staff went to the Trails and Greenways conference and kind of putting it all together. There was a really good presentation there from kind of a bike advocacy group that talked about bike bells and how they can be effective in letting people know before they get to that scary point that a bike is coming up either around a corner or from behind. Part of it too is stop and say hello for the equestrians. So it's kind of a merge of two different items for the different user groups. But really listening to what that presentation was about, we thought we could also try that out over at Coyote Valley and see what kind of response we got from the bike users. So March 30th of this year, we started a trial period of this where we instituted directional trails only for bikes. And with that, we would do a monthly swap for that from clockwise to counterclockwise. And then we offered bike bells. So our communications department ended up finding a vendor for bike bells that they are branded. So they're Open Space Authority bike bells, just to get our name out there. And field staff ended up developing a kind of holder out by the kiosk that holds these bike bells in place. People can take them off. The idea was that people could take them off and put them back. There's tools there to install them directly on your bike. They're really like $1 or something each. So for them to walk off is not a big deal. It's also a way to promote the Open Space Authority through the branding that's on them. In addition to all this, we also put up signage at the trail entrances and really promoted it on the website as well about the change from all users being directional to just bikes being directional on the preserves. So kind of the effectiveness of this, we came from it. We have seen several compliments from the users, even the bikers, about the bell handout. It offered them the opportunity to have the bells and get them, something that they never thought about before, or even thinking about that, like kind of being polite on the trail and letting people know that they're coming up on them or they're potentially a blind corner around it. Hikers and equestrians also stated to staff that they like knowing what directions that they can expect to see the bike. So we got that reaffirmed from that study that we did, where we're hearing that even today, where they really do enjoy being able to go out there and recreate and kind of have an idea of where the bikes are going to be coming from. Some of the staff comments that they heard from the users, I'm actually seeing less complaints about bikes from hikers. So there has been a reduction in complaints from the staff that are manning the parking lots about hikers coming back and complaining about either a bike's aggressive speed or how they got scared off of that, or questioning a bike potentially conflict on that. They have seen that the bells are being taken and used. So they're not just disappearing, but they're actually hearing them out on the trails when they're out on trail patrol as well. So we do know that people are taking advantage of this and using them the way that we would like them to do. One of the good comments here that I love is hikers now have more power in how they decide to deal with potentially encountering bikes out on the trail by choosing which direction to hike. The people who complained about bikes riding up fast behind them now walk so the bikes come head on. So I believe this little change made hiking CVAL even more enjoyable. So again, really positive feedback that's coming back from staff that are seeing this from our users that are out there. Compliance, we have about 15 to 20% that are not traveling the proper way. So this is to be expected. People do, one of the survey questions did tease out the fact that people just like going the way that they want to go that day. And if you've ever hiked trails before, you understand that different ways work different muscles at different times. And they don't like the repetitiveness of having to go the same way. The numbers tend to be higher just after the directional change. So again, people are getting into that programming of like, oh, it's always clockwise, or oh, it's always counterclockwise. And then they miss the signage. I can attest that we're not always paying attention to signage out there. My wife has on occasion walked right by a sign that has said trail closed and kind of like, did you see that? She's like, no, I didn't even see it. I was talking to you. So we do understand that there are legitimate times when people do miss the signage out there. And it is kind of teasing out here as well that it's showing that after we do change the directions and we do change the signage that's out there, it takes about a week for that to really set in. So a lot of that 15 to 20% is coming in that first week. Then it tends to tail off after that to maybe like 2% to 5% that are truly just don't care, that are going to be good. They're going to go which way they want to go. On the bell usage, comments, some of the negative comments that we had back were that some of the handlebars are too thick for the bike bells that we offer. So that's something we can take into consideration when we do another order. We did order 1,000 bells, and to date, 432 of those have since left the preserve. We do still have a stock of 568 left since March 30th. So we do know that they're being used and they're being grabbed. Having that feedback from the staff that they're hearing them out on the trail is one of the best kind of indicators that they are truly being used out on the preserves themselves. So far we've had really, really solid effectiveness of this pilot program. We're going to continue it for the rest of this year and then see if there's any other opportunities we could put this in out at other locations on our preserves, or if this is just the only preserve that really makes sense for this, since it is only a 4.5-mile trail on one preserve as well. In coming up soon, we will be potentially opening up additional parking at Coyote Valley once we repair the equestrian lot. So there will be slightly more parking spaces available. So we want to see how that impacts this as well. And we're thinking about doing an additional survey at that point as well. Just overall, how people are feeling about the reserve, their experiences out there, what they like, what they dislike, etc. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Question? So is this just like a regular bike bell that ding, ding,
Ding, ding, ding, ding, yep.
Push the.
Yeah, you got the little lever on the handlebar and push.
Cool.
Yep.
All right, so do you think that horses will learn that means a bike is near?
I believe some will.
These horses, probably the same
Yeah.
horses used
Yeah.
as, people go with their same horses, right?
Yeah, what was interesting with that conversation we had up in Tahoe at the California Trails and Greenways Conference was that they are seeing that when they do have these kinds of tools out there, that the same horses that are using the same preserves do get habituated to the bike bell. So they are seeing that the horses will, if the riders take the opportunity to introduce them to them. That's part of that stop and say hello campaign that we haven't started yet. That really introduces that to the horse. And then the horse can start building up its kind of like memory muscle or muscle memory that, oh, that dinging sound is now going to be this like two-wheeled monster that's not a threat to me.
Just like hikers, some horses are smarter than others.
Yep,
And
exactly. Some will just have mind of their own and never.
At this, for this trail, how does the usage stack? Is it like busiest in the summer or in the fall, or what's our?
That's a great question. We see the largest impact in spring. So that March to like May type thing, it'll be completely full during the weekends during that time. And additionally, usually Wednesday is a full day as well. And with some moderate drop off on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Once we hit summertime, it drops off to relatively full in the mornings on the weekends only, and in the afternoons as well on the weekends. Yep. And very, very few people during the weekdays, with the most being early in the morning before the heat really hits. Once we get into fall, the numbers kind of come back up again, and we start to see increased usage on the weekends. A lot of the times full preserves there, and Wednesday uses come up as well. Wednesday seems, for whatever reason we don't know, seems to be the next used day out of all the weeks.
Direction easier than the other? Like usually there's like steeper uphill, so then that becomes downhill.
We all have our preferences. I do believe that one way feels easier as you're still gaining the same amount of elevation. But the length is different on either side, and there are a couple sections that are going to be steeper that would be considered harder for some people.
sure.
Absolutely.
Just it's steepness versus steady. So, I think my wife, we went out there during COVID a few times and we really liked the one way, and the experience was just so different than a different larger park agencies trail system that we were familiar with. So I just, I think we still are setting the standard. So it's great that we're incorporating things from other parts of the country as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Do we need to take action, or is this just a report, right?
Public.
It's a presentation. Okay. So thanks. Keep up the great work.
Would you like to ask if?
Is there any members of the public joining us today that would like to comment on this item?
If any members of the public joining us via Zoom would like to comment, you can raise your hand. You're next.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
There, appreciate it. And let's go to item 2, review and make recommendations on land use and stewardship committee meeting dates for 2025. Exciting. Our new name and everything. Stretch that all out.
Yeah. Don't need quite that much length. Well, good evening. This item is going to be looking at the meeting dates for the Land Use and Committee in 2025. So tonight's recommendation is for the Land Use and Stewardship Committee to consider possibly moving their meeting nights from the 4th Thursday of the current meeting schedule of February, April, July, and October to the 2nd Thursday of February, April, July, and October, and maybe even consider if there's a need for increasing the number of meeting dates as well. And so, as you mentioned, we've had some changes with the Land Use and Stewardship Committee. It was formerly the Use and Management Committee. And in the last year, we expanded the purpose of this committee to include natural resources, long-range planning department, and to address the board's interest in being able to visit project sites and knowing more about the authority lands. And so for that reason, we decided to expand the purpose of this committee, and we changed the name to reflect the inclusion of those things. And so now the Land Use and Stewardship Committee met once a quarter, the 4th Thursday prior to the regular board meeting. This year on February, April, July, and October, and the inclusion of a special meeting on Wednesday, September 18th, where we went to Coyote Valley. But other than that, the meeting cadence didn't change. And so what we would like you to consider is moving the meeting from the 4th Thursday of the month to the 2nd Thursday of the month, as illustrated here. These are this is February, April, July, and October of 2025, with the 2nd Thursday highlighted. The board will be the full board tonight will be reviewing proposed changes to the board operating rules and procedures. So we wanted to get your feedback tonight on this so that we could sneak it in so that we're doing all the approvals simultaneously. And in addition to the board updates, moving the meeting cadence of the land use could effectively free up the 2nd Thursday of the month to allow more time to devote to our committee meetings. ABC is already on the 2nd Thursday of the month. So this would moving land use to the 2nd Thursday would be cohesive with when ABC is
2 meetings at once, or just
the ABC meets on March, May, June, September, and November, so the alternate months.
Alex had that committed to memory, but I didn't.
No. Okay, I can tell you right now, I will probably not make the second, the February meeting. I will have extreme jet lag. That morning from Australia.
Got it.
We're gonna be wide awake.
Yeah.
The other item that Lucy could consider is adding an additional standing meeting date to the calendar, which would ideally be August, as August right now doesn't have a committee meeting. So we could think about moving also, I'm sorry, we could also think about moving the July meeting to August and taking up that space that way. And that way, normally a night that's usually canceled could then roll over to the next month. Or we could keep the meeting in July and add August, or we can keep the 4 dates, February. I already forgot them, February, April, July, October, and then add special meetings as needed, which is kind of what we do now.
If you need more, I mean, I think special meetings is good. It's really subject to,
It's needed, right?
right? Got any other creative trail plans that we don't know about? Okay. I don't ride my bike at Coyote, so I didn't know that we had bells, but.
Okay. So that's good. Yeah, for your consideration, what does this committee, how do you feel about moving the meeting dates from the 4th Thursday to the 2nd Thursday for these particular months? I guess we can address that first.
Director County?
Other than that one.
Okay. It should be fine. I think, we want to be receptive to staff's recommendation. The great thing is if it doesn't work out well, we can switch back.
Exactly.
So any members of the public have any thoughts about this change in our meeting cadence?
Oh, if any members joining us via Zoom have any comments, you can raise your hand. No. Okay. Okay.
Hearing none, I think we'll go forward and try this.
Okay, great. Thank you. And just so you know, I will be taking this recommendation to our board meeting that's coming up next. So you might hear some redundant things, but
We feel like we're in the know.
yeah, and feel free to add whatever you'd like during that meeting.
I'll probably repeat some of it during my committee report too.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Any other items for us to go over? Okay, well, hearing that, we will.
I got approached by lately, I've been approached a lot over the years, but I got approached by 3 different parties lately, and I'm not sure why. But the only thing that makes, I'd like to agendize the item of dogs on leashes on our reserves. Like, I just got hit with this, especially people coming to Rancho from the adjacent park. It's the only thing it's the only negative thing I've been hearing kind of all along, and I'm wondering, you and I have had this discussion, and I know it's not favorable, but it's come up enough, so I think we need to address it at least publicly.
So you want us to, at some point, have a conversation on one of these future meetings about the dogs on leashes on our preserves?
Per the county leash laws and rules, etc. So, yeah.
Well, if
County parks.
If I can clarify that.
Yes.
I mean, is this to the LU, the Land Use and Stewardship Committee, Lucy?
I would, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yes.
just, wouldn't it start here?
Yeah, I think that's makes sense.
Okay.
And with that now, we can adjourn until our regular board meeting. Thanks.
All right.